The Chaos Dwarfs of the Darklands and Skaven of Clan Skryre are the foremost experts in the Warhammer world on the creation of devastating arcane war machines. The demonsmiths of the dawi constantly seek to create more and more destructive weapons, with machines such as magma cannons and Deathstreaker rocket launchers being some of the most infamous examples of their mad bid for dominion over all. The warp-like engineers of Skryre are no less enthusiastic in their pursuit of power, creating warp lightning cannons and rattling guns in an attempt to dominate the battlefields of the old world. These factions have long outpaced every other race in terms of sheer brutality and creativity, but they remain neck and neck with each other even after thousands of years. In this video, we look at the similarities and differences between the destructive engineering of these two races, as well as what happens when they collide in open warfare. On the surface, Chaos Dwarfs and Clan Skryre have very different approaches to weapon design. The dawi favor solid planning and reliability when crafting armaments, making them relatively slow to innovate and produce compared to their ratty competitors. In return, of course, their creations are much safer to use than Clan Skryre weapons. The Skaven would prefer to produce as many weapons as quickly as possible, favoring speed and raw power over clever design and safety. They achieve this through the power of Warpstone, harnessing its chaotic energy to swiftly achieve things that would take other more careful races decades, if not centuries, to design. The Chaos Dwarfs turn their noses up at the Skaven's reliance on Warpstone, instead preferring to rely on the power of their god, binding demons within artillery pieces with the lore of Hashut. This doesn't mean the odd demonsmith won't use a pinch of Warpstone every now and then, but it's not a consistent part of their toolbox. Of course, while the math and the engineering are different, that's ultimately a superficial distinction. The end goal is the same. Both races create incredibly dangerous weapons, but this danger extends to themselves as well. While Chaos Dwarf artillery pieces are certainly more reliable than Skaven creations, they're still far more likely to kill or maim their wielders than even the Empire's crude war machines. That tends to happen when you make a perfectly functional cannon and smash a demon into it with a magical hammer. The spirit is bound to come loose at some point, and when it does, the demon engine will turn upon its handlers in a blind rage. The results are gruesome, to say the least. Most Chaos Dwarfs blame such incidents on the will of Hashut, claiming that such misfortune can be avoided with skill and discipline in the forging process. This may be true, it may not be. To the unfortunate crews eaten by their own rampaging hell cannons, it is entirely academic. Somehow, Skaven war machines are even less safe. While equally destructive, they are much easier to produce, and as such can flood the battlefield. Who cares if half your artillery goes up in a self-inflicted mushroom cloud if you still outgun your opponent by the end of the battle? This casual disdain for the lives of their fellows, especially those perceived as weak, is ultimately the greatest similarity between Chaos Dwarf and Skaven culture. Despite their common hatred for greenskins and dawi, Skaven and Chaos Dwarfs do not get along well. The Skaven are incredibly racist, with every individual fully believing in their species' supremacy over all other intelligent life, while the Chaos Dwarfs seek nothing less than total dominance over the entire world. They are not allies, and they jealously guard their mechanical secrets from each other. Still, there is an exchange of knowledge, of sorts. Chaos Dwarfs keep an eye out for abandoned Clan Skryre weaponry in the battlefield, while the Skaven loot and steal every Chaos Dwarf war machine they can find. Ambitious inventors will attempt to merge their own creations with that of their enemies. The fact that Chaos Dwarf and Skaven engineering have their roots in inherently different schools of thought makes such a task extremely challenging, however. The idiosyncrasies between the two design philosophies of warpstone-powered weapons and demonsmithing are dangerous, at times impossible, to bridge. Nearly all such attempts have ended in madness and death for all involved. As bad as these failed fusions are, the destruction they bring are often limited to their creators' workshop and the surrounding area. The broader region is left unaffected, at least in any meaningful way. When Clan Skryre and the Chaos Dwarfs unleash their weapons upon each other, however, the effects are devastating for the world around them. The mutating power of Warpstone, combined with the chaotic forces of bound demons, creates an energy far greater than the sum of its parts. One infamous example of this occurred in 2037 IC, when a large Chaos Dwarf army attacked a Skaven force in the western Darklands, near Drakenmoor. This incident, hereafter referred to as the Nightmare of Drakenmoor, saw so much sorcerous might unleashed that the very fabric of reality was splintered for just a second. Both armies were massacred by a sudden influx of demons and an immense magical storm. The land was ravaged for hundreds of leagues around, with the arcane whirlwind persisting for a year before finally calming down. To this day, Drakkenmore is still a cursed place, avoided by sensible folk of all races. Of course, despite these setbacks, both sides claimed victory. Such is their nature. With that, we have come to the conclusion of our overview of Chaos Dwarf and Clan Skryre relations. They don't like or respect each other, but their engineers will steal from each other like magpies if they think it'll bring power. As for whose weapons are more powerful, who really knows? It all depends on what you want out of your artillery pieces and firearms. All I know is, if I were somehow given the choice between serving on a Dwarf, Chaos Dwarf, and Skaven War Machine crew, I'll take that Dwarf crew any day. Not only am I unlikely to get backstabbed by my fellows, but I can pretty much guarantee that I won't get eaten by my cannon, or vaporized in a flash of green light after pressing the wrong button. That's all I gotta say on the matter, so until next time, this has been Sigmar's Chosen, signing off for now.